Welcome back to Wayne's Tech and Life. In this video, I'm continuing with my networking series videos, and in today's video, we'll talk about CIDR notation. What is CIDR notation? CIDR notation is a method of specifying IP addresses and their related or possible subnet masks. CIDR notation can help you in calculating how many addresses or range of IP addresses your network can have. CIDR represents an IP address followed with a slash, and in front of a slash is a number that represents the number of bits that particular IP address has. If we look at the following IP address that I have right here, it's a 192.168.1.114 with a slash 24. So this is a regular IP address that we're used to, and this part of the IP address is the CIDR, and the 192.168.1.114, if we remember from the previous video, if you haven't watched the what is an IP address video, you can go check that out. If you remember from the previous video, we said 192.168.1, which is the first portion of this IP, represents the network portion of the IP, and the last part of the octet represents the host portion of the IP. So with our 192.168.1.114, we also mentioned that an IP address is divided into 4 octets, with 192 being the first octet, 168 the second octet, .1 the third octet, .114 is the fourth octet, and each octet represents an 8-bit, 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 which makes our IP addresses to equal to a 32-bit number. So with that in mind, since we know that our IP address is made of 32 bits, so in this case we have a 192.168.1.114/24, and we say the /24 represents the subnet mask of the given IP address. So with a /24, what that means is, so remember we said an IP address is made up of 32 bits, so the /24 simply represented in IP address terms is a 255.255.255.0. How we come up with this number is in the next video coming up, so you can check that out on the next video. But for now, let's just stick to the basic numbers. So this 255.255.255.0 is our subnet mask of the IP address, and what that means is this is also an 8-bit, 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 and 8-bit, but in this case our 255.255.255 is represented in binary terms. This is just represented in terms of ones, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dot 8 ones again, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dot 8 ones again, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the last part is just zeros. So this is our networking portion, and this is our host portion of the IP address. So what that means is the 192.168.1, this first portion of the IP address is the same as this part of the IP address. Okay, so now with the knowledge of knowing that we have a 192.168.1.114 IP with a subnet mask of 24, how can we know how many IP addresses, or what's the range of IP addresses that I have in this particular IP address? So for us to be able to find that, we simply use the formula of 2 to the power of 32, which is the 32 bits that we have, and this 24 represents the bits as well. So say 32 minus 24 bit, which will simply give us 2 to the power of 8, I believe. So with the 2 to the power of 8, this will give us 256. So 256 is the number of IP address or the IP address range that we have for this particular IP address that we have with a /24. So suppose we have a /8, we have a /16. How do you think we're supposed to do that? So it's the same thing. It's a 2 to the power of 32 minus 16, and this will give us 2 to the power of 32 minus 16. This will give us a 2 to the power of 16, and 2 to the power of 16. This will give us a 65,536. So that means with the /16, we're able to get 65,536 IP addresses from that particular CIDR notation or from that particular range. So if you notice something, from /24, we only had 256 IPs, but a /16, we now have 65,536 IPs. So what that means is with 65, what that means is the lower the lower the number of the /24 or the CIDR, the more IP addresses that we have. We'll do another example. So suppose I have an Azure account and I want to create, I have a VNet address that I have, and my IP for this VNet at the moment is 11.0.0.0/16. So with the /16, if you remember from the last video, we have 65,536 IPs, which we only find by saying 2 to the power of 32 bits minus 16 bits, which gives me 2 to the power of 16 bits, which is 65,536 addresses. So now with 65,536 addresses, that means I can have as many networks or as many IPs as 65,536. So suppose I want to create subnets within this particular VNet. How can I do that? So say I want to create a subnet for the IT department, and I want to create an subnet for my accounting department, and maybe one for HR. So the reason we want to create these subnets is so that the IT department use their own network portion, the accounting department will use their own portion, and the HR will have their own network access. So now, knowing that my IP address or my CIDR range is capable of hosting 65,536 IPs or addresses, in these departments, I cannot create anything that will give me more than 65,000 IPs because my network is not able to host those many networks. So from just before, if you remember, we did the /24, and we learned that the /24 will give us 256 IPs after we do the 2 to the power of 32 minus 24 bits, which will give us 2 to the power of 8, which is 256 IPs. So what that means is on this IT department, I can now simply have 11.0.1.0/24, and in the accounting department, I can have 11.0.2.0/24 again, and in the HR department, I can have my 11.0.2.0/. So now I'll have a /3.24 because we want these guys to be on different networks. So if you remember from before, again, we said this is the this is the first 3 octets of the IP address is the networking portion, and the last octet is the host portion. So we have networking portion and host portion, networking portion and host portion. So if you notice that we have a 1 right here, I have a 2, I have a 3. So what that means is these 3 departments, they are all in 3 different network range, in 3 different they all have 3 different network portions because the .1, .2, .3, so there is no interference between the networks. But if I'm to put like 11.0.1.0/24, that means the accounting department and the IT department, these guys in the same network host, so they'll be using the same IP address. So not the same IP address, but they can share same IP addresses from the same network portion. So I want to divide it in a way that these guys are in their own department, these are own department, and the HR are in their own department. So with all that in mind, this is my explanation of the CIDR range or the CIDR notation. Feel free to ask me any questions, and I'll do my best to answer as many questions as I can. Watch out for the next video. For now, peace.